Do you know what pin suppression is? What happens if you notice that your traffic is going down based on Pinterest and no one's clicking on your pins and no one's following you? Well, I'm going to talk about what happens when your pins get no traction. All right, so let's go into it because what you need to know is the Pinterest community guidelines. So I'm going to drop a link and you can look and review it, but we're going to talk about it because this is what a lot of bloggers have and they don't know why they're not getting any traction and why their Pinterest traffic isn't growing, their Pinterest profile is not growing, there's no clicks and things like that. The Pinterest community guideline details the content safety for their platform. You might be surprised of what Pinterest deems as harmful or misleading or even violent type of content. When you think of suppression, what Pinterest is doing is that they're not serving up your pins to their bigger audience or even to your followers because they have deemed it as misleading, as harmful, or some kind of marker on your pin and they don't want to show it to the masses. And you'll notice that in your Pinterest analytics, you're not growing. You may not even grow at all. You may stop growing. And sometimes Pinterest will shut your account down if every pin that you pin has some kind of harmful or misleading content that is going against their community guidelines. I want to talk about certain ones that are probably things that you're not realizing, especially if you're a mom blogger and especially if you're using Pinterest to grow your traffic. All right, I do have several Pinterest profiles, one of them being Smart Mom Ideas, and I do pin a lot of mom content, and there are some topics around the mom parenthood content, pregnancy content, postpartum content that can be deemed as harmful or misleading and will suppress your pins. The well-known ones are breastfeeding and essential oils. Those two could suppress your pins if that's what your pins are about. It doesn't mean you can't find them, and it doesn't mean that your profile isn't popular. I do know one very popular blogger that does focus a lot on breastfeeding, and she isn't hurting. Her profile is probably established. She probably pins a lot more other types of content. So these breastfeeding pins that I see on my feed at times are showing up, at least to me as a follower. So she may not get a lot of traction from those types of breastfeeding pins, but she is getting a lot of traction elsewhere. Now, as far as essential oils, I do see pins about essential oils. I can search essential oils and get some ideas if I type in essential oil ideas or essential oil, scents for my bedroom, calming essential oils. I am going to see pins, but just realize that there might be certain types of essential oils, certain connotations around essential oils that might deem it as harmful or misleading, and your pins will be suppressed. Now, a newer one that has been surfacing up lately, especially for parenthood bloggers that use Pinterest, are these pins focusing around children. Right? Because there could be some connotation with just children in general in a misleading context. I don't want to go too deep into it, like a predator type of idea, I guess. That's why it's important as a mom not to really showcase your children. I do use my children at times, but they're babies. I don't show what they look like now. But these types of pins, Pinterest has been noticing and suppressing. I have noticed that my Smart Mom Ideas profile isn't bringing in a lot of the traffic from Pinterest. So I have been noticing that lately. So I'm still showcasing pins, I believe, with some children. I don't blog on that profile very often anymore. So let me just go and check. So yeah, here's my Smart Mom Ideas blog. And I do still show children. I do still show kids, but I try to show it in a very wholesome manner. And as far as my breastfeeding content, I don't pin that very often. Any older breastfeeding content did get a lot of traction. So those are still circling around on Pinterest. But any new stuff, this is specifically for SEO, right? So any kind of new stuff or review purposes, all this stuff is for SEO, for people to find these topics. And that's fine. You can still blog about these suppression types of content on your blog because it's for SEO purposes. You just wouldn't focus it on a Pinterest strategy. So yeah, I do have, little children and their moms and things like that. So my Pinterest profile overall hasn't seen as much growth lately because of that. So if you look here, I'm under 1 million monthly views. Usually this gets over 1 million monthly views. And, for now it's stable, which is nice. If we look at, and things are on an uptick, which is nice for now. If I go to, I guess the last 90 days, you can see that I haven't grown much. I'm still just very stable. I took a big dip here and I'm starting again fresh. So there, overall, the growth on this profile is stable, but I'm not growing. So that could be an indication that, some of my pins are getting suppressed. But, one of my top pins is a breastfeeding pin here. All the rest are mostly just ideas and getting pregnant and things like that, with no pictures of kids, no pictures of a mom, except this one has a dad and a boy. But this nursery ideas is just a very side view of my husband right there. You can barely see him, but that's a top pin of mine. So as you can see with Pinterest, I'm still following people that will serve up pictures of babies, breastfeeding picture. That's mine still. So you can see I'm still getting these served up, but just realize that there might be a slight suppression if you focus on like kid and mom, a lot of kid content showing kids. So that's something to consider because it can suppress your pins. Other bloggers have told me that they're not getting a lot of traction because of that. But as you can see, there are lots of right here. I got children right there. So I got children here. I wouldn't be too worried, especially for that type of content, if that's all you focus on, but try to create pins without the child and then just have like a toy instead. Play it around with different ways to show your topic and do an A/B testing of yourself to show if it's kid activities, just show like crayons and paint on a table versus a kid with messy hands for painting, and see which one gets the most traction. And that can give you an indication if Pinterest is suppressing more pins that have a focus on children. And then, like I said, I still see breastfeeding pins out in the wild. They're mine. I see other ones. So even though the Pinterest community guidelines has connotation for no breastfeeding, they will not show these. It's in the manner, what you're showing in the pin. Of course, they don't want to show nudity, so, exposing the breast and things like that. There might be some nuances to that topic. Pinterest has said in the community guidelines, I'm just going to look at my notes here, you can save content about sexual health, breastfeeding, mastectomies, art, education, and well-being with adult nudity, given the P-word context, but we may limit its distribution so people don't run into it accidentally. You can still save it, you'll still see it, all of these things, and Pinterest will probably limit its exposure. It won't reach a bigger audience. Right, so consider that when you're deciding on a blog niche. If you just want to focus on breastfeeding, I would open it up to just like pregnancy and postpartum, so you can talk about other topics. Now, if you're in the home decor niche, you might want to stay away from the term ivory if it's like a paint color of some sort, because that could be a red flag for Pinterest. And because of that, they might then suppress your pin. So if you have the word ivory in there, they just flag it and then it won't reach a bigger audience. So just be aware of that. There's a lot of other things, connotations behind the word ivory. Pinterest can't differentiate between those two types of ideas on their pins, I guess. So I would just stay away from using that term ivory. Just personally, I want to use the best practices on Pinterest, so I'm not going to use those words. So if you are getting little light bulb moments and ding, 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 like, oh my gosh, I do have a lot of these types of pins, then that could be the reason why you're not seeing any traction. Pinterest is actively suppressing your pins. So what can you do instead? How can you revive your Pinterest profile? With my Smart Mom ideas, it's the only way that I see I can start growing is really focusing on that profile, creating alternate pins, and trying to get those viral pins. But my focus isn't on that platform. It isn't on that profile right now. I will publish posts. It's mostly for SEO purposes now. So Pinterest is just a nice side traffic method for me, but it's not my full strategy. If you're new to blogging, then Pinterest should be your full strategy in the beginning, at least for the first 6 to 10 months, even a year of really just focusing on Pinterest and the Pinterest algorithm. I do have a video on gaining traction and traffic on Pinterest, so make sure you check that out after this one. But for now, if you're noticing any suppression, I would stop saving and stop writing about the breastfeeding content, or at least not create pins for it if you still, are getting traction elsewhere for your breastfeeding content or content about ivory paint and all that. But I wouldn't just create pins for it. I would focus, especially too with kids. So I would focus on creating like pins without people, pins without kids, and use different words for even postpartum can have some suppressive pins, topics in that content. So I wouldn't even use postpartum. I haven't for the longest time written about postpartum because it is just not a great topic for Pinterest, I'm finding. I don't know how it is lately. This was sort of like years ago, so I can just check real quick to see how that's going. So if I type in tips for new moms, I do get postpartum tips if I actually write it out. If I just type in postpartum, I am getting now some searches for postpartum. So maybe things are changing now, and it's something that you can write about and get some good traffic. So that's good. I know, the last time I checked about postpartum, it was mostly for shopping. It didn't have a lot of options. So I only got people and no terms. So things are changing with Pinterest. So that's good to see. I just go to the home feed and refresh it because I searched for postpartum. I don't know if it's going to now serve me postpartum content. This is sort of postpartum here, but she didn't use the word postpartum. Yeah, I'm not getting served up a lot of postpartum content. This is my pin. So here's postpartum. So yeah, there's one here, but I follow that blogger. So yeah, you can just see on here's postpartum here. It is there, but I'm getting a lot of other pins and other topics, especially pregnancy content, if you've noticed there. So, it's also the people that I'm following and what I search for on this profile. So it's a lot of pregnancy content more than kid activity content. But that's what I would do, if I was to focus on my Smart Mom Ideas profile. I would create a lot of alternate pins, which I'm not doing. I would try to find those viral pins, ideas, and create a lot of those. And then I wouldn't pin any breastfeeding content at all. I would change my pins not to focus on the mom and the baby and see if that works. I would try it out and wait at least a month to 3 months to see any traction, even longer. It does take a long time to see your results on Pinterest, so just be aware of that. But hopefully that helped you. If you noticed any kind of suppression on your pins, let me know in the comments below if that is happening. Tell me what your topics are, tell me what you're seeing, and try these methods out and see if those work. All right. If you need more help, you can also visit, twinsmommy.com. I do talk about Pinterest there, and I do share a lot of Pinterest content on my channel here. So make sure to like this video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video.